If you'd like to make your NFL games a little more interesting, you've come to the right place. It's the Even Money Podcast with Ross Tucker and Steve Fezzik.
Yeah, Vegas, baby, Vegas. It is the Even Money Podcast presented by DraftKings, and it is week one of the NFL regular season. Those of you that are regulars, you know the documented successful track record up over a combined 130 units over the last 5 years on this show. You have come to the right place. If you're a new person, you like to win money, you came exactly where you should be. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman, 5 teams, 7 years, at Ross Tucker NFL on social. You can always engage with us there or at Ross Tucker Pod when we post any of our shows like the Ross Tucker Football Podcast or Fantasy Feast, College Draft, Business of Sports. But this is the podcast that people love every NFL season. We give you all of our picks and we even recap how we did the week before so you can keep us honest in 30 minutes or less every week. The only NFL betting podcast that you need, primarily because my co-host is an absolute rock star. Steve Fezzik at Fezzik Sports and only at Fezzik Sports on Twitter. You can check us out, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL if you want to watch the show. But Steve, let's be honest. The results on this show speak for themselves. I mean, there might be other shows that are a little funnier than us. Maybe they're a little more entertaining. I don't know. I think we're pretty entertaining, but maybe they're people laugh a little bit more. Don't you want to win? Like, don't you bet on sports to win, Steve?
That's the only reason that I bet on sports, Ross, and that's why I'm here. And, sometimes we show maybe too much discipline where we say, hey, I liked it at this number, but that number doesn't exist anymore, so we have to pass. But that ultimately has led us down to the road of success.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we do what we do, and that's why we enjoy what we do. So let's dive into it. So just so everybody knows, if you're new here, every week we will quickly go over how our bets the week prior went. Obviously, it's week one. There are no prior bets. And then we'll dive into all of our bets for each game. If it's a best bet, Steve and I agree. Brian will hit the sounder, and we will be all over it, feeling good about the fact that we've historically been very good with our best bets. Last year was actually a down year for our best bets, but typically they've been at a very high clip. And you will know how many units we place on each bet, and we will always use the latest DraftKings line. That's our provider. That's the line we're going to use. That's what I'm looking at right now. And Steve, we'll start with Thursday night. It's the Buccaneers hosting the Dallas Cowboys. The Buccaneers are favored by 8. The total is 52.
I think the Cowboys are really up against it here. Obviously, Dak, no preseason, and now cluster injuries on the O-line with the Cowboys. And frankly, that was the big optimism that Dallas was going to get that O-line healthy again. And now that's not the case. Because of that, I can only look to Tampa. We've spoken about this numerous times, that whenever we have an 8-point favorite, we want to tease that down through the corridor of 3 through 7, turn it into a -2. So this is going to be my prime time teaser of the year, Ross. I'm going to put 3 units. Tampa teased down to -2. Fast forward all the way to the Sunday night game. I'm going to play the Rams from -7.5 down to -1.5 for the second leg of the 2-team 6-point teaser.
Steve, I love that bet. I absolutely love that bet. It's funny because I wasn't even thinking teasers yet. My brain was in a fog. I like the under in this game. I'll get to that momentarily. With the spread, I would lean Tampa Bay laying the 8, but I don't lay 8 points like ever. So I'm not doing that. I love the idea of the teaser with both the Rams and the Bucs. That is a glorious bet. And if you're in for 3 units, I'm in for 3 units. We never do this, but if you're a new listener or a new viewer, we very rarely do a 3-unit bet. It's a lot of 1 and 2 units bets, but I love it. Primetime teaser of the year. I am with you on the 3 units. Rams tease down to -1.5. The Cowboys tease down, or the Bucks tease down to -2. Here's a question for you, Steve. I like the under 52 in this game. I think with no Zach Martin, with La'el Collins, with the Stingers, I think that's a problem for the Cowboys. They've obviously just getting up to speed with Amari Cooper and Dak. The Bucs defense is very good. I also do think Dan Quinn, with Micah Parsons, some of the pieces on defense, I think they'll be a little bit better defensively. I kind of like the under. I want your expert opinion on having both of a teaser bet and a under on the same game. Any problem with that? Any issues or not at all?
No issues whatsoever. I think Tampa is going to score a whole lot of points against the Dallas defense, but I think you bring up great points that Dallas is going to struggle offensively. And bottom line, week 1 and 2 tend to be lower scoring than in other weeks in the NFL. And all I need is for one of these teams to struggle to score, and the under would make a whole lot of sense.
I mean, even 31-20, I'm still hitting the under there. I'll put 1 unit on the under 52. I got to get a feel for this season. Crowds are back, which I think is actually in my favor with the under, make it harder for the Cowboys to score. So I'll go 1 unit on the under 52, but we do have that best bet on the teaser, Bri.
The best bet.
What a way to start the year. Love it. All right, let's get to some Sunday football, Steve. Sunday at 1, Bills hosting the Steelers. Bills are favored by 6.5. The total is 48.5.
I think the side number makes sense. I am going to play the under for 2 units. I expect the Steelers, it's all going to be about ball control, trying to establish the run with their first round running back selection. And because of that, that's going to shorten the game. On the Buffalo side, we saw Josh Allen make a tremendous leap forward. He went in QBR rankings. He went from 24th to 4th. He went from dreadfully inaccurate to top 5 in accuracy. I think he's going to take a little bit of a regression, still be a top 10 quarterback. That's going to take a little of the edge off of the Buffalo offense. Pittsburgh, obviously, really good on defense, not so good on offense, under 48.5, 2 units.
This is a game that I rarely do this. I rarely lay 6.5 points, but I think that place, New Era Field or whatever it's called now in Buffalo, that place is going to go bonkers, Steve. They were awesome last year, but they weren't allowed to have fans. That place is going to be crazy. The Steelers are starting 2 rookie O-linemen at center and left tackle, young guys at right tackle and left guard. I think the O-line will eventually be okay in Pittsburgh, but this is a rough spot at Buffalo to start the year. TJ Watt might practice for the first time tomorrow, maybe. I'm only going to put 1 unit on it because it is 6.5. But I'm laying the 6.5, 1 unit with the Buffalo Bills. Up next, we've got the Niners in Detroit to take on the Lions. The Niners are laying 7.5 points. The total is 45, Steve.
So the Niners are similar to the Rams, 2 teams that I think are going to be really good to start the year. The Rams are paper thin, and the Niners always seem to get injured. I don't know how good these teams are going to be by the end of the year or even the middle of the year, but I want to bet on them early, especially while Jimmy G is still starting. So I'm looking towards San Francisco. Whenever I see that -7.5, I want to play a teaser. So I am going to tease the Niners down from 7.5 to -1.5. I'm actually going to tease it in a 6.5 point teaser. I'm going to take them down to 1 because I'm going to tease up the Washington football team from +1 to +7.5 for my second leg of the teaser. So 2 units. San Francisco to the Washington football team, 6.5 point teaser.
Got it. That makes sense to me. Yeah, you never want 7.5. You got to tease with something. You can't lay 7.5. I don't feel like I have a really good feel for the 49ers at this point. The total seems about right to me. I think the Lions will be offensively challenged. So a low total of 45 sounds right. I am not going to do that teaser with Washington, although I understand where you're coming from there. This is just a pass for me. I don't even really have a lean either way, but I do have a lean in this next game. It is the Eagles at the Falcons, 1 p.m. on Sunday. Interesting game, Steve, because it's two first-time head coaches, which means there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of what that's going to mean for these teams.
Absolutely. And Atlanta really did not have a good preseason. Normally, a brand new head coach has success in preseason. Atlanta looked horrible, just horrible. I don't know if that meant that they weren't emphasizing the preseason or whether it's a sign of problems to come here in September. Bottom line is, I really am not interested in betting either one of these teams. I'm going to pass.
So I'm going to go with the Eagles. By the way, I've heard people say that you can get them for 3.5 other places. So you might want to look around. But at DraftKings, the Eagles are getting 3 points. Maybe this is my Kelly Green colored glasses. Maybe this is me just being too close to the team. I just think the Eagles are going to be better than people think. I thought they got the better of the Patriots and the New York Jets in their joint practices. I think they're much better than Atlanta up front on both sides of the ball. If you're a longtime listener, you know these are my favorite bets. A team getting points that I think has a great chance to win the game outright. 2 units on the Eagles getting the 3 points. The total I should have mentioned is 48. No play there, but I've got 2 units on the Eagles getting 3 points in Atlanta against the Falcons. Let's get to the Seahawks and the Colts, Steve. I'm a little surprised. I know the game's in Indy. A little surprised Seattle is only laying 2.5 in this one, given the issues Indianapolis has had coming into the season.
Yeah, so earlier in the summer, it was Indy that was laying the 2.5, and now it's flipped to Seattle laying it, and I think this line move makes complete sense. You know, Carson Wentz, no practice time with his brand new team, O-line issues for the Colts with Quentin Nelson, and their number one wide receiver, T.Y. Hilton, is even going to play this year. Every year we see it. There's one team that everything seems to go wrong for that team throughout the summer, and it just becomes a negative momentum thing, and the team never recovers. I think that team is the Indianapolis Colts, perhaps, and the New Orleans Saints this year. I want no part of the Colts. Lean Seattle minus 2.5.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Seahawks minus 2.5. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lay those 2.5 points. I think they got business taken care of with Jamal Adams. They just got Dwayne Brown signed. They took care of everything they needed to take care of going into the opener. They're healthy. The Colts absolutely are not. And by the way, even if Carson Wentz is healthy, we don't have any evidence that he's good again, that he's going to play well. He was terrible last year. So I'm going to lay 2.5 points on the road. Don't do it often, but I think the Seahawks win this game. And I don't know, Steve, you tell me, how often does a team win by less than 3 points?
Favorite by 1-ish, about 3% of the time, by 2, maybe 1.3% of the time. So less than 5% of the time.
Right. I'm taking the Seahawks, laying the 2.5 points, 2 units on Seattle in that game for me. Let's get to the Jets and the Panthers. The game is in Carolina. Carolina's favored by 5.5. The total is 45, Steve.
So I actually made this game 6.5. So I would certainly lean to Carolina, but there's a whole lot of uncertainty associated with that. I don't know how good the Jets coach is going to be. I don't know how good the rookie quarterback's going to be. He looked great in preseason, Wilson. So because of the uncertainty, I'm going to stay on the sidelines, and I'm going to go ahead and pass the game.
Totally agree. Too much unknown for me with the first-time head coach for the Jets, the rookie quarterback for the Jets, Darnold in Carolina, for his first start, how he does with Joe Brady as the OC. Just way, way, way too much uncertainty for me there in that one. I'm going to pass this game. I don't even really have a lean. I think 5.5 seems about right to me. So that's just a total pass for me. What about, this line has changed since this morning already on the next game, Steve. This morning, the Vikings were laying 3 against the Bengals. Now the Vikings in Cincinnati are laying 3.5. The total is 47. I'm curious, Steve, how much of a difference does that 3 to 3.5 make numerically? Because I liked Minnesota laying the 3. That 3.5 feels significant.
Numerically, it's about the difference between shooting a bullet and throwing a bullet. It's enormous. So let me go ahead and do the math. So let's assume that the Vikings would have at -3.5, that's a good line. 50-50, it falls on either side, so no advantage betting. Well, if you could have played, it turns out in terms of the distribution, 10% of the time, the Vikings are going to win by exactly 3. So this morning, you had a bet where you would have gone, if you would have bet it 100 times, you would have gone 50, 40, and 10 for a nice fat 55.5% on Vikings -3. Well, at -3.5, it's a 50-50 bet. It's worthless. So got to go ahead and get the very best number in your wagering. There's concerns about the Vikings locker room, this whole Kirk Cousins. He's willing to risk getting clotheslined by linebackers that might put him into intensive care, but apparently the vaccine is too much for him to be able to risk. And that's a concern for me about the entire Viking team and the chemistry there. But the bottom line is Joe Burrow ready? By all reports, he struggled during practice and in preseason. So I could only look towards the Vikings. I would have bet them -3 at 3.5. It will be a pass. There's a kind of a famous sports bettor named Suma, and Suma gave out the Vikings today, and he actually moved this number to 3.5, is my understanding from followers of him.
I'm out on this game now. I liked Minnesota laying the 3. I was going to put at least a unit, maybe 2 on them, but at 3.5, that makes a difference. I mean, that's a big difference. I have learned from you the importance of every number, making sure you get the better of the number. I guess I'm a lean Minnesota at 3.5, but not the same, obviously. I'm not going to go ahead and bet this game either. What about Arizona and Tennessee? Interesting game. Another Sunday 1 p.m. game, Steve. Titans are favored by 3 at home, and the total is 52.5. So are they saying that they think these are evenly matched teams if the Titans have the home field advantage, favored by 3 at home?
Yeah, and home field, I think most people now are counting most venues as being worth under a field goal, about around 2.5 points. So because of that, the markets are saying Tennessee is the slightly better team, and I agree with that. One angle on this game I haven't heard anyone else discuss, there were no crowds last year, no noise. And so most teams now in preseason have limited experience playing against subdued crowds in the preseason, but they did get some experience on the road with a hostile crowd. Maybe I should say a crowd, not necessarily hostile. But Arizona doesn't fall into that bucket. Arizona did not play a road game in the preseason. They played 2 home games, and they got hurricaned out for their game 3. So I think this is going to be a shock to the Arizona system on offense, having to suddenly deal with crowd noise for the first time in 2 years. Because of that factor, I can only lean Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm a lean Tennessee as well. That I had not thought of that, Steve. That's a good point with the New Orleans game, getting canceled. I will lean Tennessee as well, but I'm not going to play that game at 3. Chargers Washington football team. The line is only 1. The Chargers favored by 1 in Washington. Feels like a lot. The total is 44.5. Feels like a lot of respect for the Chargers.
Absolutely. And sometimes, and again, I had to play 2 units for the teaser with the 49ers. down to -1 with Washington football team up to 7.5. Ross, sometimes I like to move the point spread around to show that there's clear value. And I say, you know what? Let me move this point spread 3 points in each direction. All right. Hypothetically, what would happen if I moved it 3 points and Washington was -2? You know what? It wouldn't seem all that unreasonable. Maybe that's slightly too high, but we can have a conversation about this game at Washington -2. Let's say I move it 3 points the other way and I make the Chargers -4. Well, that's the dumbest line I've ever seen. Of course, we're going to bet, our biggest bet of the year on Washington catching 4. How the heck could that be right? Because if you analyze it from that perspective, I think you can see Washington is the clear right side as long as they're the underdog. I like Washington. I teased them. I'm also going to put 1 unit on Washington +1.
Got it. Yeah, they're in the teaser, and you're putting a unit on them +1. I like it. I'm kind of torn there. I'm going to join you on that. I'm going to put 1 unit on Washington +1. Let's make the Chargers show it. Now, I do think with the new head coach, new schemes, that gives them a little bit of advantage for the first game. You're not exactly sure what they're going to do, but I kind of like Washington at home. People, I think, are excited about this team for the first time in a while. I'll do 1 unit on Washington to make it a best bet with you.
The best bet.
What about the Texans catching 2.5 points from the Jags at home, total 44.5?
So the Texans are obviously horrible, but who are the Jaguars to be laying points on the road? Again, this is one of those point spreads I gave out to my clients to take the Houston Texans +3. Really like that bet. Can't play 2.5. We had all summer. You had 3 months to take +3. Now it's too late at 2.5. Got to go ahead and pass at that point. So got to show some discipline.
I'm doing 1 unit on the Texans plus the 2.5. Just 1 unit. I think there's a great chance they win the game outright. Playing at home, I think they got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder because the whole Deshaun Watson thing. Everybody thinks they're going to stink, and I'm not sold on the Jags at all. So my philosophy, Steve, if I think a team has a great chance to win it outright and they're catching points, even if it's only 2.5, I'll put 1 unit on the Texans. At 3 or more, it would have been a 2-unit bet for me. Packers and the Saints in Jacksonville. Remember, in Jacksonville, with the Saints getting 4 points, the total is 50.
So I actually made this game 4. I'm still going to lean to the Packers. We spoke about with the Colts. This is the other team, the Saints, that have just been snake bit. Everything's going wrong. Michael Thomas is injured in AWOL for at least 6 weeks. And, Winston, everyone knows he threw all those interceptions. He's a gunslinger. He forces the ball down the field. Well, he had great wide receivers in Tampa Bay. And now, all right, I saw the Monday night game. I saw that dude Callaway. As Ross would say, he's a dude. Well, I think that's the greatest game he will ever play, preseason, regular season of his life. Those wide receivers are terrible right now for New Orleans and all the disruptions, practicing in Texas. Now we go to Jacksonville, where I think the crowd's going to be much more 50% Packer Nation. I'm going to go ahead and lean Green Bay.
Yeah, I would probably lean Green Bay as well, but I don't like laying 4. I don't like that number. But most of the things you said, Steve, I think that the Packers are the better team, and I think there'll probably still be more Packers fans there than Saints fans. I know our producer, Brian, will be there. I also know that if you're looking for another place, if you're debating on making a bet, you hear what Steve and I say, you're thinking about it for yourself, PicksWise, #1 app for sports betting picks, helmed by a team of trend-watching, data-devouring sports fanatics, giving you the who, how, and why behind every prediction for every game, every day, and every sport. Loaded with best bets, props, and parlays, you can find in-depth analysis on every game, all for free. Found your pick? Search our latest sportsbook promotions to sign up for an account, compare the odds, and finally, place your bet. Download the free PicksWise app now to make your next bet better. And by the way, when you make that bet, make it at DraftKings using the code Ross because they're giving you $200 in free bets if you bet $1 on any NFL game. on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. And you can get Tampa Bay plus 73 for Thursday night. So as long as the Bucs don't lose by 74, they're giving you free money, obviously. Cleveland in Kansas City getting 6.5 points, Steve. Earlier this morning, they were only getting 6. So the line's up to 6.5 now. The total is 54.5.
It's right where I made this game. I will say this about Kansas City. There's 2 teams in the NFL that completely juggled their O-line, and they only have 1 starter returning, and that's Kansas City and the Chargers. So by all reports, and I want to ask you about this, Ross, the collection of dudes Kansas City has on the O-line is every bit as good, if not better, than what they had last year. However, the continuity issue, especially with a limited preseason, I think is a huge deal. So because of that, and because Kansas City, after the cheetah at wide receiver, really has a bunch of somewhat unproven guys, I think Kansas City could start slower than expected this year. So I don't want any part of the Chiefs the first few games of the year with a new O-line passing this game. Your thoughts on that, though?
Everything you just said, I agree with. The Browns have a really good D-line, and they're going up against 3 rookies. Now, those guys showed themselves pretty well in the preseason, but we'll see. They're going to see some things they haven't. They're going to learn on the fly. If you're going to get the Chiefs, you might want to get them early this year. I'm going to take the Browns, getting 6.5 points. I think they're going to be able to hang tough. I'll put 1 unit on the Browns. Obviously, Mahomes playing at home. They could win by a touchdown. I get it. So I'm not going to put 2 units on it. 1 unit Browns getting 6.5 points. Let's get to the Dolphins and the Patriots. The game is in Foxborough, Steve. Patriots are laying 3, total 43.5.
Yeah, so this is another game I gave out to my clients. I said, lay the 2.5 with New England. You have a situation where that New England defense is going to be so much better, so many guys back, and on the skill position players, they added wide receivers and tight ends. But now it's 3, not 2.5. Let me give you one wise guy secret in Vegas. Whenever you have a spread that's right on 3 and you really want that hook, and with the legalization of sports betting in different states, you're going to be able to see this more and more. Parlay cards get printed out with lines that are half-point parlay cards where the sports book has to decide, hey, I can't make it 3. I got to make it 2.5 or 3.5. And on a game like this, they're probably going to print that card with it minus 2.5. That's the way to get at New England and lay the 2.5 instead of having to lay 3. I would still lean to New England because Belichick against a younger quarterback has been a profitable situation, and crowd noise, how's Tua going to respond, could be an issue. But my wise guy suggestion would be look for creative ways to get down to minus 2.5.
I got nothing on this game. I think that line's exactly right. I do not have a lean. I think the total's right. I think it's like a 23-20 game that the Patriots probably win. How about the G-men getting 3 points at home against the Broncos with a total of 42?
Yeah, so all summer long, I was bullish. I should say all August long, I was bullish on Denver. Love what they did in preseason. The Giants aren't playing Daniel Jones. I'm like, Denver, got to give me some Denver. Denver's looking good. And the line has moved. So Denver was laying 1, and they were laying 2. Now we're up to minus 3, and boom, that three ends all conversation. It's like we cannot be laying 3 on Denver. So I could give you all these reasons I'm bullish on the Broncos this year, and they were undervalued and the like. But as soon as it hits 3, I lean the Giants at that number 3. But it's no play.
I agree. I would have taken the Broncos at less than that, but at that number, I can't do it. Not at laying 3. The Giants are a little bit of a mystery with the O-line and Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones. Don't feel like I have a really good feel for them. Bears and the Rams, Sunday Night Football. The Rams are laying 7.5. The total is 46. We both teased the Rams down from minus 7.5 to minus 1.5 in a 2-team 6-point teaser with the Bucs on Thursday night. I'm feeling pretty good about that one. Anything else on this game, Steve?
Just that I think that the Rams are a team we want to bet early in the year. While Ramsey is healthy, Donald is healthy. Maybe they stay healthy the whole year. But, Stafford in recent times has had a little issue with his health. And I'm worried that this team is paper thin. So if a couple of these guys go down, Rams won't be nearly as good. But right now, A-OK with backing the Rams pretty much each and every week until some injuries may hit this team.
So, yeah, I kind of agree with a lot of what you just said, and I already said my play. Let's get to the last game, because I do have a bet on this one. Ravens and the Raiders. The Ravens are laying 4. It's Monday Night Football. The total is 50.5, Steve.
So my biggest question with Las Vegas football is, what are the crowds going to look like in Allegiant Stadium? We're seeing the highest ticket prices of any team right here in my town of Las Vegas. What's driving that? Well, Ross, you probably already know that, like, everyone in Philadelphia is talking about the game in Las Vegas that they want to go ahead and attend. The Bears fans and the Bears media, the same thing. They want to come to Las Vegas. I don't know if Baltimore is going to show this first Monday night in terms of their fans, but I can tell you that I'm really not sure. Is this going to be a big, solid home field advantage for Las Vegas? Or are we going to see a lot of games where more than half the crowd is for the opposing team? Is that possible? We will see. Until I get that question answered, I'm going to go ahead and pass on Raider home games.
I like the under in this game. I think it will be a raucous crowd. I think that will have an impact. It's unbelievable, Steve, how many of these bets that I've had that I wrote down this morning, the line's already changed. I just wrote them down, Steve. And it was 51. Now it's 50.5. How much of a difference does that make? I like the under 44 in the Dolphins Patriots. Now that's 43.5. Are they reading my mind? This was like 3 hours ago I did this. Or am I just that much of a genius?
I think what's happening is you're not alone, that a lot of really smart people have been betting other things, and now they're really saying, all right, it's time to get my bets down. And you're seeing, these numbers move. But, you bring up a great example, like the difference between 50.5, 51.5. It's like, is it really all that important? And then fast forward, there's 3 minutes left, and it's 24 all, and a team's kicking off, and you start cursing. It's like the writing's on the wall. It's going to land 27-24. 51 is a key number.
I'm going 1 unit. It was a 2-unit bet. The Ravens have had all kinds of issues on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, receiver, O-line, running backs. And then the Ravens defense is awesome. And the Raiders are having basically a new offensive line. I like the under 50.5. Only 1 unit, though. I would have put 2 units on it on the under 51. That'll do it, by the way, for this week, week 1 of the Even Money podcast here for the NFL regular season. Tell all your friends, everybody, if you want the podcast that wins, you have come to the right place. Good luck, everybody. Hope you guys win some money.
Thanks for listening to the Even Money Podcast. Make sure to also subscribe to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, the Fantasy Feast, Business of Sports, and the College Draft. All available at Apple Podcasts, rosstucker.com, or wherever podcasts can be found.
A lot of times on the show, I mentioned DraftKings. Here's what you need to know. You got to be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. By the way, if what I was talking about included a deposit bonus, doesn't always, sometimes it does. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough, and deposit bonuses are paid out in site credit.